Well, hello. So I thought I would give all five of you an update on the MPCNC. Of those five, maybe one or two will care. But I rebuilt the table for it. A couple things here. I'm going to go ahead and back up a little bit so you can see the whole thing. So, did a few things to it. I have to trip while I'm doing this. One thing is I added a cutout right there so that if I want to do any sort of work on the ends of stuff, I can drop it down through there and work on the ends. Maybe I'll experiment with like dovetail joints or something. Built a drawer for the thing so I can keep the electronics in there out of the dust. Added some cable chains, which are nice, although I forgot a cable and it was a real pain to run through, so I wound up just zip tying one of the cables to the outside, and that actually worked so good that I think if I had to do it again, that's all I would do. And then of course I redid the top, and I mentioned last time that I had some problems with the last setup. The spoil board was not level. It was not coplanar with the plane of the machine. And so you'd put things on there, they'd be tipped, and then if you're engraving, of course, with a V-bit, that means it's going to dig in deeper than you want it to on one end. So the whole thing was a mess. I also realized that one of the screws had come loose. I could just push on the board and the whole thing would deflect. So made a new board as part of the new setup, and just got done surfacing it. You can just barely see the big old surfacing bit in there. And I'll go ahead and drop some footage in right here of the surfacing in action, so you can see the machine going. Worked pretty good. Okay, so the whole thing was pretty flat. Let me move you around over here again. I'm using a tripod here just to try to keep the camera more stable. So I made this little setup, right, so I can attach a dial indicator here, and I set it up so that the Z-axis is locked right now. The steppers are holding it in place, but the Y and X can move. And what I discovered when I did this before I surfaced it was that the whole thing was out about 20 thousandths across its whole width, and it's like 18 by 24, so that's pretty good. It was relatively level. 20 thousandths of an inch isn't too bad. The other thing to realize here is that I'm just pressing on this with sort of finger pressure, and you can see I can easily get it to deflect. Now it's way out at the end of this situation. I've got it in the dust collector, but I can easily deflect it with finger pressure to 20 thousandths, and I'm not pushing that hard. Similarly, if I push on the router itself, I can move it, plus or minus like 7 or something like that. So we're already sort of within the realm of what's possible to do given the rigidity of the machine if I got it to 20 thou. But I thought maybe I'll level it out a bit, and the results were okay. I think if I run this across now, you can see we're kind of at 15 there. I don't know why it's not zeroed, but if I run it down over to here, there it's at, I'll call it 8 thou. So we're within whatever 7 thou, and I can run it down over here, and see, that's going to get off camera. I better turn that. I don't know if you can read that at all, but it's at 7 there, it's at 4 there. So, we're not bad. We're within, I don't know, call it 10 thou or something like that. There we're at 4. Well, I guess it went off the edge. Anyway, but you get the idea. So overall, not bad. And again, you can kind of see as I pull it across, just me pushing on the gantry here, it deflects kind of a lot here in the middle. What's that, 15? Anyway, I don't need to recite all the numbers. So, it's pretty good. The other weird thing that happened is, let me bring you around, that I still don't totally understand is, although I knew originally the Z-axis was not trammed, so the router bit was like this, and as it went across, it was digging. So like if you ran the router this way, you'd get sort of these, sawtooth shape. And it's not really doing that this time. So whatever happened, like the gantry broke in or something, I don't know. I did tweak a few of the bolts here on this MPCNC. Not really very thorough tweaking the way the instructions describe, but I did play with them a little bit, so maybe that helped. But as I run my hand over this, and as you saw, as you run the indicator, it's pretty smooth. The only weird thing is, as it ran the toolpath, there were a couple places where there are some steps, and I don't really understand that. So it's pretty good here in the middle and over towards the origin, which is good, since I expect that's where most of the work will be done. But as you get over here, there was a place where it came around the corner, and it was a, I don't know, call it 10,000ths low, 100th of an inch. It's pretty good. Certainly I don't expect to be putting anything across the entire surface. That's really the only time it would be over there where it would matter if it was out 10,000, especially like we said, given the inherent accuracy of the machine. But I still don't really understand what caused it to be low as it came around this side. One theory is that as this thing goes out towards the end, it's possible that the cables here, which I'm running in this little track, maybe they got caught and they pulled on the router a little bit. I don't know. I wasn't really watching when that was happening. I did sort of play around with pulling on this and seeing if it would deflect the head that much. 10,000. It didn't really seem to, but who knows? It could be there's grit on the rails that caused it to bump. It could be that the Z-axis is missing steps. Don't know. It's really quite a bit better than it was, though, so I'm going to call it good. Certainly, I think this is just maybe a place where just running into the inherent limitations of having a machine, made up with plastic parts and these. Here, I'll push on the rails too. You can see I can maybe you can or maybe you can't see that, but we're easily able to deflect it, pushing 5 or 10 pounds by 7 or 8 thousandths. And I don't know what the cutting forces are. Certainly for this, I was only taking a 0.5 millimeter deep cut, if that, touched off, and then max depth was 0.5 millimeter. So the cutting been that huge, but who knows? There may also have been some torque from the router bit engagement. I don't really know. I'm making that last part up. But anyway, pretty happy with it. I think I've kind of babbled on enough. This is where the setup is. I think it's pretty good. I certainly think for the things I'm going to use it for, which so far seems like sign making is the main one that it seems to really win at, because you don't need like super great vertical accuracy. You're working in wood, which is sort of an inherently more forgiving material, etc., etc. I would like aluminum though, and for that having this more flat, more rigid setup is good. So far so good. Keep playing. CNC, clearly a thing where it's not like a hammer where you pick it up and you can basically, well, actually, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's a good analogy. Maybe even with a hammer, right, you can smash your thumb. You don't really know what you're doing until you've hammered in a few hundred nails. I think the CNC is the same. I'll just have to get more project under my belt before I can have a sense of where I'm going right and where I'm going wrong. Certainly 3D printing was like that for me, and I still have lots to learn there. So anyway, enjoying it, and I will sign off there. Thanks for getting this far.